Okay, now let's create user list. For that, we need to communicate with Firebase and pull some data from it. Let's go over to our service. We're going to import Angular Firestore and also collection and document from Firestore, Angular Firestore. We're gonna need the observable. Let's also pull in our user. Here we need to add a variable that will hold our users collection. And that will be Angular Firestore collection. And let's pass it the user model. And in our constructor, let's add the hook to the Angular Firestore. We can make it private, AFS, Angular Firestore. Now let's add something to this. Let's create a get users. And in here we're gonna use this users collection equals this.afs.collection, and we're going to give it the path, which is users. And then we're just gonna return the collection and watch for value changes. Now let's go over to our users list, and we're gonna call this get users in there. We need to import observable from RxJS and also the user service, so we can call that the get users function. Here, users observable, and that can be any. I'm gonna pass an array. And here we're gonna make reference to the user service. Now let's just call the function from the service. This function by itself won't do anything. We need to call it in the ng on init. This ng on init we haven't used before. This is a Angular component lifecycle. The constructor and the ng on init has the same functionality. It will bootstrap your component when it's called. The difference is that the constructor belongs to JavaScript, and Angular doesn't have a way of controlling it. We should try to avoid adding stuff to the constructor and always aim to add to the ng on init, so Angular will know when is the best time to run it. So here we're gonna call that function we just create, get users. And that's all we have to do in here. Let's go over to the HTML, and we're gonna create an unordered list to display our users. Okay, we are in the users, there is no connection. Let's start our server. Okay, now that's on. Let's go ahead and start displaying some data. Let's delete everything here. Let's create a UL, then a list. Here in the list, we're gonna pass ng4 let user of users, and here you're using the async pipe. This is from Angular, and it will manage our subscriptions for us. It will subscribe to our observable and unsubscribe when you leave the component. Now let's create a card to add our user data. Let's go and import the card, like in our material module. So let's keep it in alphabetic order. So now we can call the mat card. The mat card has a mat header. And inside the header, we're gonna add the user image. The source in here, we're gonna use the Angular, so we need to the brackets, and it's the user photo URL. And for the out, let's add a user display name. Let's create a div. We're gonna put mat card title and add the user display name and a mat card subtitle. And let's just add the user email for now. Below the header, let's add the math content. And here, let's just put a p tag and add the user UID. Okay. When you reload, you see we have some data in here. Let's just add some CSS so it doesn't look that bad. Just gonna paste this one in here. Remove the bullets and give some space between the cards with 10 pixel margin and a width of 300. Now, there's a problem in Angular that it happens with when there's an image return null in here. And you see this in here. It doesn't cause any problem. It doesn't break our app, but it's still ugly to look at. It looks like an error. There is a little hack that you can add to your image tag. Here the user.photo URL, you can add a or. I need to fake file system location and replace the image until our data arrives. Now we have our list component working, but we can do better. Let's create what they call in Angular a master detail component, which is we're going to use the user list item to only display data and the list component to retrieve the data. So let's do it now. First, on the users list item component, let's add input in here. The input will accept data from other components, and that's the syntax for it. User. Need to import the user model, and for the user's display, it's this. And just copy the math card, and in here, instead of the unordered list, let's create a div, and let's say if, because we're not creating direct, we don't have any data retrieving here, we need to wait for the component to receive the data from the master component. So before that happens, we need to add a ng if. If there is a user, display. If not, don't break our app. So now let's paste that in here. Let's go back into our list component. And in here, we're gonna change this for our app user list item. Here we have the selector. And for us to add this component into the other component, we need to export it first. So in the users module, list component item, here we need to create an export array. Just paste in there, like that. Now if you go back there, I'm going to leave this one in here so you can have an example. And here we're gonna add app user list item. Now we can pass the user to the user list item component. Like that. The same as we did in here with the list item, we need to do up in there as well, so it loops through our users. Now if you save it, we have the same. It's not styled at the moment because we didn't add any styles into our list item components in here. Let's just move this. We're gonna add just the same as we did before, math card, margin, 10 pixel. Now here, let's create a class, and let's call it user title, and let's add some gap between the user email and the image. Margin left 1 em. Now I have a little gap in there. Okay, now we have our user list, but it doesn't do anything. You can click in it. So let's add a link. So when the user clicks in it, and it will display this user profile. And we will do that in the math card. So the user can click anywhere and it's gonna activate the link. Router link, and we're gonna pass the user UID. Now it's a link, but when you click, there's an error. And that's because when you create our routes, we just put in here profile. So instead of profile, let's add users slash, and you're gonna give it an ID. Let's try it now. You click. Now as you can see, ZA7, AX, and that's how you create routes with parameters. Now let's continue in the next lesson where we're gonna create the user detail page.